Fernand Felmberg, young Lord of House Felmberg, the most prosperous family in the Armian Empire. He was a student in the magic department of the Imperial Academy, came from a solid and top-notch education, and on top of that, the guy was born rich. Life gave him everything from the start. Obsessed with money, he tells everyone that nothing in this world is more valuable than cash. He used to spend his days talking to merchants. Well, talking is one way to put it. He actually spent his time scolding the poor guys who weren't meeting their targets, which, by the way, he always expected to double, but as the saying goes, trouble appears out of nowhere. One day, he was talking to a servant about a certain merchant who wasn't improving much, even though he claimed his sales had increased quite a bit. Fernand agreed, but he still didn't think it was enough, and just then, a lightning bolt strikes him out of nowhere. Just like that, the shock was so intense that his expression completely twisted, and at that very moment, suddenly a soul approached him, asking who he was. It had found someone to possess. Suddenly, a large hand reached for his head and began to pour incomprehensible things into him. Fernand instinctively knew it was trying to take over his body. He gathered some mana to launch an attack, and although the thing came in like a thunderbolt, it surprisingly wasn't that hard to push it back. Still, a part of it was absorbed into his body, and at that moment, unknown memories began to flood his mind. Fernand opened his eyes in a panic, and someone asked if the young lord was okay. He looked completely charred. Hard to say he was okay. Then, strange writings began to appear in front of him. A prophecy about the end of a world, the arrival of 72 demons who would kick him out of his family. On top of that, he would end up as a beggar and lose all his money. The guy's future was worse than he ever imagined. Losing the whole world. Sure, that was bad. But running out of money? That was simply unbearable. From that day on, he started trying to figure out what had happened, what that thing that tried to possess him was, and how those memories ended up inside him. Unfortunately, he never found any real answers, but there was one thing he was sure of. There was a high probability that those prophecies would come true. Why? Because ever since he received those memories, he has been using them to make tons of money. The problem was, it didn't make him happy, because that meant the memories were probably real. And if they were, then one day he would lose everything. Someone offers him a cup of coffee, but Fernand refuses it, grabs the newspaper, glances at it, and the guy watches him closely, then asks him if he's been feeling weird lately. And Fernand says no, but the guy is sure something is not right. He's been seeing him seriously worried for about half a year now. Out of nowhere, Fernand starts drooling as if he's lost in some random thought, and lately he's been making impulsive decisions, which is not like him at all, since he used to be the king of negotiation. The guy is sure it has to do with that lightning strike. Fernand remains silent, lost in thought. He doesn't want to admit it, but everything that happened back then is still eating him up inside, because he knows very well that he will end up as a beggar. That's when he sees a name in the newspaper. Ain't Armin, and just like that, he gets furious. That bastard had actually shown up. Fernand storms off, saying he's heading south. The guy just stands there confused, thinking that this kid really isn't okay. The Imperial Academy is located on a remote island, massive and vast, but built entirely with magic. Everything there is artificial, no doubt about it. Still, our boy is there today because it's finally time to find out if the prophecy is true. Of everything written in that prophecy, 3 parts really stood out to him. The part where he loses all his money, the part where he becomes a beggar, and that third part, yes, again, where he ends up ruined. Just those 3 futures, the futures, already felt unbearable. Well, actually, there's more. There's the version of the future where he becomes a beggar, of course, but there's also another where 72 demons from the Solomal River invade the land, and then there's a third thing that happens. Ain't Armian, the one destined to save the world from those demons. That name is known throughout the entire empire. Why? Because he's a direct descendant of the Emperor Calinus Armian. House Armian is literally the one that founded this whole place, but that was 1,000 years ago, and nowadays they've lost all the power they once had. Still, the prophecy clearly states that the one known as Ain't Armian is the story's protagonist. After passing the school's entrance exam, he arrives in this region, following a map given to him by the Emperor. From that moment on, he enters the academy, and countless events occur, all of which were written in that novel that was implanted in Fernand's mind. Which means if Fernand runs into that guy here, the prophecies have to be real. But the reason he's looking for Ain't isn't just because he's the prophesied hero, it's also directly connected to Fernand's miserable future. He's the one who delivers the letter saying Fernand has been expelled from the academy, and the worst part is, Fernand has no idea why that bastard was responsible for his downfall. All the text said was that Ain't Armian saw Fernand Fellenberg as something, it wasn't clear, but that's why he found him repulsive. With such vague and twisted writing, there's no way to know what caused what, but on the surface, it seemed to be something about Fernand siding with demons or something along those lines. He jumps off his horse, looks around and asks if this is the place. There was supposed to be a dungeon left by the first emperor of the Armian family. Inside, it was said to hold a sword containing the spirit of the royal knight, Gardener. Assuming the book was right, that sword is the one Ain't would use to begin his fight against the demons. If it weren't for that kid's destiny to save the world, Fernand would have killed him already, especially since that guy is responsible for the future, where Fernand ends up on the streets. But just then, he smells something strange. Blood. He looks to the side and sees a plant stained bright red. Just like in the story, he ran into a croaker before finding the dungeon. These creatures are the apex predators of the swamps, and Ain't, who had just entered the academy, didn't stand a chance. And with that, it became increasingly clear the prophecy was beginning to come true just as Fernand decides to take a peek inside the dungeon. That bastard Ain't Armian suddenly appears right in front of him. Fernand immediately asks what he's doing there instead of taking the academy entrance exam, as he's supposed to. Ain't wants to know how Fernand even knows who he is, and Fernand replies that everyone knows who the emperor's descendant is, but the blonde kid has no idea who Fernand is. Fernand introduces himself, and it seems he doesn't have the best reputation. The blonde kid is startled and asks if he's that infamous Fernand Fellenberg. Fernand's expression hardens a bit, and he tells him to show some respect, then asks if he's hurt because he fought a crocker. Ain't says yes. He's covered in blood. At that moment, Fernand tosses him a high-quality potion and mentions it's worth 10 times more than a regular one. Ain't is about to say that he doesn't have the money to pay for something like that, but Fernand tells him to relax. He's not someone who needs money. A free humiliation for the poor guy. Then, Fernand adds that the kid has imperial blood. Asterisk. Are you sure this could be considered a version? Asterisk. The blonde kid watches him for a moment, thinking that maybe Fernand isn't as crazy as the rumors say, and he thanks him. But Fernand is already realizing this guy is starting to cost him money. That potion was stupidly expensive, so he starts lecturing him, talking about how valuable that potion really is, and tells him that he owes him a lifelong favor. And then he waves goodbye, and Ain't is left standing there, still thanking him, saying he'll return the favor someday. But, of course, Fernand is just off to the side, watching in pain as that bastard chugs a potion that cost him hours and hours of work. Shortly after Ain't enters the dungeon, Fernand follows him. He can't believe it, but there really is a dungeon in such a remote place. 1, what confuses him is the number of magic lamps still working inside. 2, when he picks one up, he realizes it's a special lamp that absorbs mana from the environment to stay lit forever. 3, that thing is worth a fortune, and of course, since Ain't is broke, he didn't even bother to take it. It just goes to show how naive the kid is. Fernand remembers from the prophecy that this kid enters this place badly injured. He starts drinking weak potions to stay on his feet. But the problem is that the kid has half his ribs broken. Those weak potions aren't doing anything, yet the stubborn idiot pushes on. Then, suddenly, his eyes sparkle. An instinctive reaction. On an altar, there's a simple-looking sword. Simple looking? Please. It's a huge, shiny sword that glitters in the light. How is that simple? Ain't grabs it tightly, and in that instant, its light fills the entire cave. When Ain't opens his eyes, he's no longer in the dungeon. Fernand sees it happen. The kid didn't leave the room, and he's nowhere inside. He just vanished. The stone still shows the mark where the sword used to be. And all of this just infuriates Fernan even more, because it means the prophecy is still coming true, which also means the expulsion letter will arrive any day now. They'll take away his title as the head of House Felmberg, he'll be publicly humiliated, and his father will tell him to never show his face again. Before him. Or anyone else in this world. I mean, what the hell is that? It's basically a nice way of telling you to Alt F4 your life. Dude. Fernan scratches his head. He can't believe he's actually walking straight into poverty. What kind of cursed future is this? Ain Armian is the protagonist, the hero who's going to save everyone and also the one who's going to ruin Fernan's entire life. Still, he can't deny it. The guy is like a rising stock that just keeps gaining value. The real problem is that their personalities don't mesh at all. Fernan only cares about money and profits, while Ain Armian cares about honor and justice. If Fernan lets his true personality show too much, he might lose the chance to build any kind of connection with that guy. He says it's a complicated problem. The butler asks what he's talking about. Fernan asks Hyde what he thinks. There's a certain investment opportunity that could bring in $1 billion if they take it. Hyde says he'd invest without hesitation. Fernan agrees, but then asks, what if the people managing this investment have a personality that completely clashes with his? Hyde replies that it's not a problem. The Duke always said that even personalities can be aligned when there's money involved. That makes Fernan stop and think. Yeah, he's right. There's no need to complicate things. The principles were the same. Invest, take the risk, and make a fortune. Incompatible personalities could be ignored when the potential profit was so high. Still, he needed more information, and he needed it from Ain. So at that moment, he says he's going out. The butler tries to remind him that they have a meeting scheduled with someone later, but the guy is already gone. At the academy, your dorm depends on your rank. If you're in the top 10, you live like royalty. Between ranks 11 and 30, you still get a decent room, but if you fall outside the top 30, you're basically sleeping next to the dumpster. Sure, they tried to make it all look spooky, but it's still a huge castle. That desperate voice yelling about how shameful the dorm is, that's the spirit of Garner, the one from The Sword Ain't Picked Up. The spirit is already laying into him, saying there's no way Descendant ended up with such pathetic talent. It keeps ranting, saying it's a total disgrace. If the Emperor knew about this, he'd break the neck of every demon he saw. That makes Aint pause. Why is it mentioning demons? The spirit replies that it wouldn't have appeared if demons weren't involved somehow. Aint mutters that he won't be able to do anything, he's too weak, he just started at the academy, which only enrages the spirit even more. To be brought back by someone so frail, what a disgrace. Aint replies saying it's the first Emperor's fault. He was the one who abolished the imperial succession system and replaced it with the current system where the 7 noble houses vote. Our protagonist's family, Armian, is at the top. Apparently, the Emperor also donated most of his lands to the Empire. Wait, one moment. Is Armian Aint? That means our protagonist is Felmberg. The blonde guy continues, saying that because of all that, they even lost their sword techniques. He's basically summarizing the last century for the spirit, but seeing how bad things are now, he tries to lift the spirit's mood a bit. He still has potential. And besides, the spirit could help him restore the family's honor. Maybe appearing now is part of the Emperor's plan. Then someone knocks on the door, calling for Ain Armian. From the voice, you can already guess who it is, right? Yep, it's him. That smug bastard is already there, standing in a suit, smirking like always. He asks if Ain is busy. Ain says, not really, nothing urgent. Fernan says that it's a good time then, they should go somewhere quieter. It's too chaotic in there. Ain tells him to wait a second, that he just woke up, but Fernan cuts him off, reminding him who gave him the potion and tells him to get a move on. Obviously, Ain is trying to hide the spirit that's floating right behind him, but he's probably the only one who can see it right now. The spirit wants to know who that guy at the door is. Ain explains that he's a guy from the Fellenberg family. Even the newly revived spirit knows exactly who they are, filthy rich and nothing more. He warns Ain not to get involved with people like that. All they have is money, they're not strong, they're not worth it. Ain thinks Fernan is there to charge him for the potion, but instead, the first thing Fernan brings up is the sword. Yes, he brought it along for their little chat. Aang explains that lately he feels safer carrying it with him, but Fernan already knows that sword is the one containing Gardner's spirit. Aang asks why Fernan wanted to see him. Fernan says it's nothing important, he just invited him to get a bite to eat, but Aang is hesitant, the place looks way too expensive. Fernan replies that you can't refuse an invitation from a superior, and Aang agrees to go. So the two of them are sitting there, checking out the place while Fernan watches in silence. The boy seemed friendly and calm, composed, but Fernan knew he was trying to hide something. He gets straight to the point and asks him what he plans to do after graduating from the academy. Usually, people come to a place like this to expand their influence, and it's strange that someone from the army and family is here, considering they've always refused to get involved in this sort of thing. Aang says he's here because he's tired of hearing people say that his family is worthless now. The Armians still have royal blood, even if it's only a name, and for that reason, he wants to become a true knight and restore the family's honor. Fernan studies his personality a bit more. He can already tell that the boy has strong determination, ambition, and a lot of pride in his lineage, and they keep chatting about whatever until the scene changes. Finally, Fernan feels like he's starting to understand what kind of person Aang Armian really is. His original plan was to sponsor him a bit and buy him a few things, invest in him, but judging by the boy's personality, Fernan knows that would just feel like an attack on his pride. This kind of investment needs a push and pull approach, kind of like a relationship. You give a little and then nothing, then you give a little more and again nothing. He knows that with someone kind, the only way to build trust is to earn their loyalty bit by bit. And only then, when the moment is perfect, he will reel him in. Just then, the butler shows up and asks where he's been. Fernan asks if they've spoken with the Burchefs yet, and the butler says yes. The Burchef girl he needs to speak with about that whole issue with the merchants has been waiting for quite a while. Fernan had completely forgotten about her. The butler says that if he'd known it would take this long, he would have told her to come back another day, but she decided to wait. And 3 hours have already passed. She probably thinks that Fernan has been making her wait on purpose to make her give up, to which Fernan replies that, honestly, that just makes things easier for him. If she's already discouraged, it will be even easier to crush her. Whoa, easy there, boy. He laughs and says that anyway, he still needs things to go well with the Burchefs. Then he suddenly feels something strange. The butler asks, what's wrong? Holding his head a bit off balance, Fernan says, it's nothing, just a weird headache. But of course, something new appears, something about an aquamarine and a noble who is still alive, something like that. Actually, it's about a girl with brown hair and eyes that looked like aquamarine, but behind all her beauty, what best describes her is her noble presence and her unmatched skill with the sword. Her sword danced under the moonlight, and it said that if her chains were ever broken, she would be able to spread her wings again. Those chains belonged to the Fellenberg family. Now Fernan starts putting the pieces together of why Aang ends up hating him in the future. Apparently, he is going to have some kind of connection with that blue-eyed girl, and Fernan seems to be a problem in his life. Fernan mutters a curse under his breath, and the butler thinks it's directed at him. Then we cut to the girl sitting there, thinking about Fernan Fellenberg. Why the hell did that bastard make her come here only to leave her waiting for 3 hours? She doesn't even have a little phone to hang out on TikTok or something like that. She's drowning in debt and wonders if he thinks this is going to wear her down. Meanwhile, Fernan is right behind her, silently watching as the poor girl keeps waiting. From a distance, he could feel how furious she was. It turns out that the Burchef family, her family, comes from a remote northern city. They used to protect that region, but after a massive monster attack, they were practically wiped out. The fortress they had built was completely destroyed, and now they are desperate to raise money to rebuild. They even sold some kind of golden patent that granted certain rights, but it wasn't enough. And the one who rescued them, the one who lent them a hand, was the head of the Fellenberg family, our boy's father. But of course, he didn't do it out of compassion. The Fellenbergs had always been talented in magic, but swordsmanship, that was another story. And the Burchefs, with their flawless sword technique, were starving. It was the perfect opportunity, so our boy's father offered them a loan, one they could never repay. The Burchefs survived the annihilation only to die a slow death now, under crushing interest rates. This was the perfect opportunity to pressure them and force them to hand over their magical swordsmanship technique. But the problem with the Berchefs now is her. She is the one who, in the future, becomes Ain Armian's lover. Her potential, her intelligence, her beauty, everything is exceptional. The only thing she lacks is wealth. Given her talent and her connection with Aint, all Fernan has to do is make sure she doesn't hate him. So he enters the room and says he arrived earlier than expected. He apologizes, saying he got distracted and that he never meant to make her wait. She tells him not to bother apologizing. Her time has already been wasted. He insists again that it wasn't on purpose. She says it's fine, she'll just pretend to believe him. He starts to say something, but she cuts him off. She wants to know why he made her come in the first place. Fernan replies that it's obvious. Of course, in theory, this is the moment when he should ask for her family's sword technique. But right now, his real goal is to get her to at least tolerate him, maybe even like him. He was trying to seduce Luina Berchef, seriously. She's supposed to be Ain's future bride. Well, the future is the future, right? Damn, that was cold. He starts talking about something related to the class structure between the knights and the magic department, but she cuts him off before he can finish. She says she already knows. He wants her to be his partner, but why would she agree to something like that? Being his partner makes no sense. As the second best student in the department, she'd be much better off teaming up with someone in the top 10, not with someone like him. But then he says, if you stay as my partner for 3 years, I'll pay off all your debt. On one condition, she has to accept him as her sponsor. He's really trying to buy the girl. She asks why he's going so far. He says it's because this class thing is important, but she still doesn't get it. He doesn't just want her to be his partner, now he wants to sponsor her too. Maybe he doesn't know. But she's at the academy on a scholarship. Everything she earns goes straight to sitting there in a luxurious chair while a woman fixes her clothes. Oh right, she doesn't buy clothes, women cook for her. I get it. Fernan tells her to stop overthinking it. He just wants to invest because she's talented, nothing more. But she knows how nobles work. They never sponsor anyone without expecting something in return. At that moment, Fernan makes a decision. Even if he hates it, he's going to make her accept this. He says that the Fellingbergs and the Berchefs share noble status, but they are not equal at all. The Berchefs' pride in their swordsmanship doesn't compare to the strength, the wealth, and the royal lineage of the Fellingbergs. Ouch, that stung. She's clearly offended, so Fernan changes tactics. Even if he hates it, he'll get her to accept the deal and tells her directly to stop acting so proud. He wasn't lying when he said she was talented, but now it was time for her to accept it. Phase 2 of the operation, let's see what he does now, and there he goes, saying that he saw her swordsmanship recently. Out of nowhere, he starts quoting that same line from the book, talking about how her sword was noble and beautiful, or how it truly embodied beauty and life. He knew that would get her. Now that he had acknowledged her talent, she would have no choice but to accept. She seemed a bit confused. Honestly, she didn't even blush. It seems our boy has no aura whatsoever. He stands up and says he hasn't been able to forget watching her fight. The guy launches into a whole spiel, clearly full of fluff about how he hasn't been able to sleep since. She just tells him to stop with the nonsense, but he says he can't. He keeps talking, saying her swordsmanship is like a perfect dance and that words aren't enough to describe it. How dazzling he is. She finally gives in and says, fine, she didn't really have a choice, did she? She needs the money and he's the richest person around. A little later, he tells her it will be a 3-year sponsorship deal, but that it won't be made public. Actually, it's the maid who is watching everything unfold. But for her, the real price for all of this was that Luina would have to be that money demon's partner for 3 whole years, and that's already bad news. Now she gets all seductive, saying the offer was too good to refuse. Not to mention the guy said he saw something in the way her sword moved. Potential. The maid asks what exactly he said, and Luina answers her. He said it was a supreme, noble, beautiful, and living dance. That's when she finally blushes, saying it felt like he didn't even have words to describe its beauty. The maid doesn't seem happy about that. Wow, jealous much? Let him work his charm. She admits the bastard has good taste, but if she ever runs into that greedy gnome again, she's going to crush him. Yep, the maid likes our boy. She says that guy is definitely using charm tactics. He's good looking and has an intense gaze. Right away, Luina notices the maid has a soft spot for that guy. Luina says she didn't exactly feel seduced. She was more suspicious of the whole thing. Still, she couldn't say no to 3 years of financial backing, especially with her family completely bankrupt. The maid says she gets it, but still, Luina is in second place and that damn Felmberg is barely in 10th. Just then, our boy's assistant, Hyde, shows up. He says the Lord wants to see Miss Luina. He'll be waiting for her at the training grounds and she should go as soon as possible. The maid clenches her jaw while Luina tries to make sense of all this. She can't figure out what he's thinking, and there he is, our boy, walking in style with that magic staff strapped to his back, probably valued at 15 quadrillion coins. Luina may be in second place, but the current number 1 is someone named Alon Donors. Still, she had enough talent to one day be among the top 10 strongest on the continent. Now, it was time for our boy to find out if she was a hidden gem or not. She enters the training ground, saying she still doesn't quite understand what he's thinking. Fernan explains that he's there to prove that joining him wasn't a bad decision. She already knows what that means. He's going to try and prove it by fighting her. So she warns him. He doesn't stand a chance at rank 10. The only thing he's going to achieve is getting defeated, though she admits it's not that bad. Still, he needs to understand that the difference between rank 2 and rank 10 is huge. But he just tells her to bring it on. She says fine, she'll give him the chance to prove himself. Oh, finally. He's channeling his magic. Finally, this guy is going to use something other than money. Immediately, a shower of rocks rains down on her. Our boy recites something in an unknown language, and the attack flies straight at her, but she just swings her sword once and cuts it all to pieces, smiling. In that same second, she lunges at him, slashes everywhere, jumping left and right. She's going at full speed. He's genuinely impressed by how easy this is for her. Smashing up the whole place, he keeps casting spells, but she deflects them like it's nothing, and then, bam, he teleports. Now he's behind her, drawing a magic circle. She knows the training ground has a reinforced floor that's supposed to resist all magic, and yet, somehow, he's still destroying everything. That makes her pause for a second. Fernan Feliber, who actually, and he did all this by himself? He's been over there calmly casting spell after spell, tapping his staff against the ground calmly. Now she starts to wonder, has Fernan Feliber been hiding his true power all this time? So the guy is rich, handsome, and secretly powerful. Come on, share some of that. She notices he's casting multiple spells, one after another, without a break, which makes no sense. He'd need a ridiculous amount of mana to pull that off. Definitely, that's not the power level of someone in rank 10. At this rate, she's actually going to lose. She activates a tornado and starts smashing all the floating rocks to pieces. Fernan reappears, watching someone with a smile. The whole training ground is falling apart. The sky breaking through the ceiling, rocks flying everywhere. With her sword in hand, she lunges at him again. Another flurry of slashes, and now our guy is still just standing there. Let's see if she hits him. But suddenly, the sword drops to the ground. Wait, wasn't that his staff? With an embarrassed look, he says that he gives up. She immediately suspects he's toying with her. Is he really trying to humiliate her? He says no, he's completely out of mana. He literally can't do anything else. She watches him for a moment. He doesn't seem to be faking it. Now it all makes sense. He drained his mana completely. There was no way he could win like that. Since she managed to defend herself, that clearly counted as her victory. But she still felt uneasy. There was something about all this that didn't quite add up. Then, Fernan says he has something for her. Yep, this is her prize for beating him. A box of chocolates. He knows she likes them. Apparently, his family produces one of the best chocolates out there. He's sure she won't refuse it. And if she doesn't want that one, he can always buy her some Kraken chocolate. A little dazed and practically drooling, she says it seems like he's been researching her. And he replies that he wouldn't go that far for someone like her. Yikes, is he into her or not? Make up your mind. He says he only researched a few people in the top ranks. She replies, that's exactly what you did. And she turns her back on him. She tells him to stop trying to offer her chocolate just because she won a duel. She's not a little girl. He insists a little more, and she snatches it from his hand, saying, "Fine." But then she stops him. She wants to ask him something. How the hell does he have so much mana enough to chain cast so many skills one after another? Normally, that would be impossible for a mage. It's way beyond the normal limits. If he's so skilled, why is he only in the 10th rank? He smiles and says it's obvious. A merchant doesn't need to be in the spotlight. This guy keeps his rank low on purpose, just to make more money. Not even pride. Even pride comes after profit. He glances sideways at his staff as someone nearby asks what happened. It's Hyde, and he wants to know why Fernan used up all the mana refills and the mana amplifier. Our boy says he had to fight Luina and that she was surprisingly tough. He came fully prepared and was still defeated. Not only did she defend herself effortlessly, but his mana ran out long before he could even think of hurting her. Hyde doesn't get it. Why go so far for her? Was it really worth it? Fernan says it's simple. She's an investment for the future. Once again, the butler wonders if this is a side effect of that lightning bolt to the head. Honestly, our boy just thinks that Hyde was completely right. Her swordsmanship was truly elegant. Now, it made sense why he was so focused on the Berchef family's techniques, not to mention that Luina was really talented, so why did she never seem to stand out in the future? Maybe her equipment was mediocre, or maybe something happened along the way. Well, yeah. Her family basically ruined her by burying her in endless debt. Still, the assistant wants to know what Fernan is going to tell the Duke. After all, he failed to obtain their family's legendary sword style. Fernan admits he hasn't thought that far ahead, then asks if that means he's going to lose his position. The butler says no. He won't be exiled. They'll probably just kill him, run him over, and leave him in a ditch. He already sent a letter to the Duke in advance, so the guy is ready to execute him as soon as he shows up. And instead of panicking, because he knows this is about to get out of control, Fernan has been trying to distract himself and ignore it all. A few days later, the letter finally arrives. He opens it, more nervous than ever, wanting to know what his father said. He was already on edge because the reply came much faster than usual. The butler confirms it, but says that the real worry now is what's inside. Fernan even asks if his father sent a separate letter with an execution order. The butler says no, although he's pretty sure that today will be his last day serving Fernan, since this is his end. Fernan knows deep down that he's not going to lose his position over this. It'll be because of Hyde and his drama. But when he finally looks at the letter, all his father wrote was that he was probably possessed by a demon. At that moment, Fernan says he should go visit the old man. Obviously, he can't tell anyone that he got that prophecy, or that he knows a bunch of things that haven't happened yet. It's not like he can physically prove it. There's no actual book, just the information in his head. If he just blurts out the truth like that, his father will think he's a delusional merchant who has lost his mind. He'll probably get furious thinking that Fernan is trying to ruin the entire family. That's why, for now, the goal is simple: minimize the damage that this situation with the Berchefs might cause. When he arrives, the Duke tells him he looks much calmer than he expected. He asks if maybe he's been using drugs, or if he's slowly losing his sanity, or maybe the demons the Emperor killed in a past life have started to possess his son, because if it's none of that, then he can't explain what the hell is going on. Fernan replies that he simply decided to make a better investment in the Berchef family. The Duke wants to know what kind of investment could be better than receiving his secret sword technique. And Fernan simply says he can't tell him. The Duke replies that this isn't a request. Right now he sees Fernan as nothing more than a disgrace, a fool trying to squander the family's fortune. But Fernan stands firm, saying that his beliefs still haven't changed. If the Duke were to entrust him with the Berchef situation, the result would bring a fortune much greater than that sword technique. The Duke says that if that's really true, he's willing to reconsider, but he wants to know where Fernan's confidence comes from. Fernan says he can't reveal that. The Duke's temper flares. He says this is getting ridiculous. He didn't raise his son to be so reckless. He should know that things like this can't be handled with just vague words and empty promises. That's when Fernan realizes he'll have to reveal something about the prophecy if he wants this to work. He really didn't want to start talking about that, but he's running out of options. So he says that in exchange for taking full responsibility for the Berchef matter, he will share a piece of information that only he knows. The Duke asks how that's possible. Fernand says it's because of an intelligence network he personally manages. Of course, his father wants to refuse, saying there's no way his personal intelligence group is smarter than the one the entire family runs. But alright, he's curious about this supposedly great information Fernand claims to have. So Fernand tells him about the Harrows Mountains in the East Territory of the Viscount of Donerts. There's an undiscovered mana crystal mine in that region. His father says that's hard to believe. Normally, as soon as mana mines are discovered, they're completely looted. So how is it possible that Fernand's group, which is clearly inferior, knows something like this while his intelligence team completely missed it? He even says that Fernand's group is made up of children. Fernand just shrugs and says that kids love to dig in the dirt. They got lucky. All his father needs to know is that the amount of mana crystals down there is more than enough to cover the potential loss from the negotiations with Berchef. The Duke's face turned serious. What can he say? He loves money too. A mountain of wealth will be enough to make any problem disappear. Mana stones, rare crystals containing magical energy are one of the best ways to get rich. The only problem is that in the prophecy, this mine is only mentioned briefly. There's no exact location, and Fernand himself hasn't seen it. He doesn't know how big it is or if it's really that valuable. But right now, the goal is to buy time with his father. He also remembers that the Donert family had some kind of supply operation there, but it failed after a cyclone hit the area. Obviously, they were supposed to claim that mana mine for themselves, but now Fernand's family has the chance to take advantage of the situation. The Duke says that if what Fernand said is true, he could fix the mess he caused, but it will have to be verified first. For now, Fernand should go back to school and focus on his studies. Fernand thanks him and leaves, sweating, thinking that at least he managed to calm the Duke's temper. But just as he's walking away, his father calls out to him, "Fernand!" He turns around in a panic. What is it? The Duke simply invites him to dinner, since he's already there. Later, the Duke speaks with the butler, looking a bit disappointed. The Black Turtle, his family's intelligence group, overlooked something so important. The Duke quietly chops something, saying he will investigate what's going on with his information network. Then, the Duke asks what the butler thinks about Fernand. He says, the boy has been turning into a respectable merchant. The Duke agrees, but he still wants to know how they found out about that mine. It just doesn't add up. They should also investigate Fernand's intelligence group to find out how they're getting that kind of information. Maybe that's what they specialize in. Apparently, Fernand's group is called the Golden Pillar, and Fernand himself is a specialist in locating mana stones. Despite having a top-tier talent in fire magic, he focused entirely on earth magic just to understand more about the stones. That little bastard. The Duke says that it makes sense somehow. His son's magical talent fits, and his group investigates exactly that. Still, they need more details. The butler suggests they be careful. Fernand might be growing faster than they expected. But the Duke smiles, saying he didn't expect something so extraordinary to come from his son. If it turns out to be true, that's great. But now they need to investigate that girl, Louina Berchef, and find out how she managed to seduce poor little Fernand. The butler says it seems the Duke really believes she seduced him. He says that, of course he believes it. He raised Fernand to be a brilliant merchant. Why else would the boy spend money on something so stupid? The reason is obvious. He was defeated in the game of love. Still, he gets it. The boy is young. Youth isn't easy to control. But the Duke, he's not young anymore. He doesn't care about their relationship. What matters is understanding why Fernand is getting involved in all this. Because that boy, who loves money more than his own father, suddenly chooses something like this. The scene changes to Louina, happily eating a huge ice cream cone that our boy gave her. They're talking about someone named Carlos. Apparently, he wanted to sponsor her too, but once he found out Fernand already was, he went after someone else. Fernand asks why, she told him. She needs to understand that rumors spread, but she replies that everyone is going to find out in the end anyway. Besides, she already knows people will assume she only partnered with him for the money, and the reason she doesn't want to hide it is because, well, that's exactly what it is. He nods and says, yes, money is great. He really likes it. With money, there's nothing you can't get. Right then, she understands why people call him the demon of wealth. That's the very reason she hates him. And that's when he hands her something, an elixir and a coupon. The elixir was made with mandrake roots, and the coupon could be redeemed at one of his company's stores for a weapon. She immediately wants to know why. There's no way she can afford something like that. He mentions the sponsorship contract. She says she knows, but still, this is too much. These kinds of items are extremely rare. From his reaction, however, she can already tell. It's only rare for someone like her, someone poor and drowning in debt. For him, though, it's nothing. Still, she refuses to accept it. Meanwhile, Fernan thinks, considering the fact that he's destined to become a beggar in the future, anything he can do now to avoid that is a 100% gain. He tells her that refusing his support goes against the terms of their contract. After all, she agreed to be sponsored. She's practically fuming and says, "Fine, I'll accept it." He gets up and says, "See you in class." As he walks away, she can't help but think, even if this is a sponsorship, it's going to come at a cost. Will there be some hidden clause in the contract where he ends up losing everything? That can't be real, right? But what really puzzles her is that she doesn't understand why he's going so far, giving her all these weird and valuable things. Maybe he's trying to seduce her just to steal her family's sword technique, or maybe it's something else entirely. Whatever it is, it doesn't matter. There's no way she's going to fall for him. Yeah, right. The moment someone says that, they're doomed. Poor Ain't Armian, someone tell his future fiancé, who he hasn't even met, has already been stolen. Meanwhile, back in class, Fernan knows Ain't is supposed to be around, but where is he? Ah, there he is, standing quietly off to the side. Today's lesson is about actual combat training and deadly swordsmanship. And according to the prophecy, this is where Ain't should start getting noticed. This is the beginning of the story, the moment the world starts to watch the heroes rise. Fernan wonders what Ain't is doing there. One of the students catches his eye. Fernan, being one of the ranked students, says he's supposed to be keeping an eye on the incoming competition. He asks if the guy is here to watch Ain't Armian, and the other guy smiles and says, "Of course, he's from the imperial bloodline. Considering Aint's family is descended from the great savior and it's been 100 years since any of them enrolled in the academy." Yeah, people are definitely curious about him. That blonde guy's name is Ludger Schwaben. He's the second son of the current ruling family. 100 years ago, they were chosen as the new imperial family and have held power ever since. Turns out, they share ancestral roots with Aint's family, but their bloodline split a long time ago. They highly value their current position, and now someone from the same ancestral line, Ain't, could come back and steal their spotlight. So, naturally, he's drawing a lot of attention. Ludger also tells Fernan that there's someone else interested in Ain't, too. A guy named Varen Kalbunder. Seriously, what's with these names? This guy entered the academy as the second highest scoring student and is probably looking to steal all the attention Ain't is getting. That's exactly why he was watching the guy so intensely. That was the name Fernan had been waiting to hear. In every hero's story, there has to be a villain, and it seemed that in Ain't Armian's story, this was the guy, the one who vowed to cut Ain't Armian down at the root. The instructor announces the next match, Anton Dern versus Ain't Armian. And so, every person involved in the future Fernan had seen was now gathered in one place. It was truly a fascinating sight. In his memories, he remembered everyone cheering for Ain't, the crowd shouting his name, but right now, nobody even knew who he was. No one had any idea of the potential he held. For Fernan, however, this was the moment to see if his investment was going to pay off. Fruits, the instructor tells them to get ready and then gives the signal to begin. Darren charges at full speed. Ein looks surprised by the first clash of swords. Twice, Dern launches a slash straight for the neck. He was serious. He was really trying to decapitate him, but Ein leaps into the air, landing to the side. Still, the jump exhausts him. In the stands, the second prince comments that Ein was unlucky to face someone so skilled in the first round. Anton. Dern had placed 10th in the entrance exams. He definitely wasn't someone to be underestimated. For the record, Ein had placed 36th, and that was before he got his hands on the Emperor's sword. The second prince shrugs and says there's nothing worth seeing here and starts to leave, but Fernan says he thinks something interesting is about to happen. happen. Right at that moment, Ain't throws a wide slash straight at his opponent's face, a cut that grazes his cheek and rips his uniform. And he, in that moment, realizes that if the blade had gone just a little further, he would have been sliced in half. Now, even those two smug guys who were looking down on the blonde kid are paying attention. Fernan can tell that Ain't only struggled at first because Dern was too aggressive. It was just a lack of combat experience, but the talent was clearly there, and once he focused, it only took him seconds to beat the guy who was in the top 10. Now Dern is on his knees, totally humiliated, defeated by the kid who was ranked 38th. Wait, wasn't it 36 before? His rank is dropping by the minute. Dern flares up with aura, yelling that there's no way he's going to lose here. On the side, a couple of students comment that Ain't is doing better than they expected, but that there's no way he can beat someone who placed 10th. The second prince adds that, well, at least he's living up to the Armian name. For someone supposedly without talent, he's putting up a decent fight. Fernan, however, sees it completely differently. A lack of talent, that wasn't it at all. The truth is, the boy came from barren lands. He never had the support or resources to train properly, and yet there he was, facing someone who had trained their whole life. This kid really was something special. It's no wonder the prophecy chose him, and now the world was about to find out who the real protagonist of this story was. Dern's sword goes flying. He falls to the ground panting, completely defeated. The instructor announces the winner is Ain't Armian. Ain't stands there, smiling from ear to ear, while the crowd erupts in cheers. The redhead looks at him with frustration, and the money demon, he's also celebrating. The stocks went way up. Now, that was a good investment. He hums a little tune, totally pleased, but now it was time to see what came next. The people nearby start to murmur, wondering if those two, Fernan and Luina, are really a couple. Thus, the next big investment, Luina, who is standing next to him, furious. He casually asks if she took the elixir and picked up the gear he gave her. She doesn't say a word, but the truth is, she was really happy. When he received all that equipment and when he took the elixir, his power skyrocketed, yet he remains calm and just mutters that it wasn't bad. It was fine. Suddenly, someone approaches. It's the instructor, who says that all the pairings have been finalized, and fortunately, no one was too late. She was Rosalia from the magic department, and the guy beside her was Grad, the horse knight. He goes around handing out some scrolls, announcing that the class is about to begin. Everyone will receive maps from the assistants, and the first class is a practical exercise. At least at this academy, they really value a good fight. The redhead says that today, they will receive real training. From now on, they'll be thrown directly into the field. On the map they're receiving, the destination is marked. All they have to do is reach that exact location within 4 hours. But here's the catch. They can't arrive too early or too late. They have to arrive in exactly 4 hours at 2 in the afternoon sharp. Some curious students ask if this will affect their grade. They're told straight up, this is as important as the midterms. Their goth professor says that if there are no questions, they're dismissed, and she simply wishes them good luck. The scene shifts to a mountain deep in the forest, and here comes the dynamic duo. One of them asks where they are exactly, but Luina is already fired up and tells them to get a move on. Still, he probably should take a quick look at the map first. But then, as he turns around, they notice another pair staring at them, and the red-haired girl calls out to Luina. Fernan recognizes them immediately. Jane Hawks and Ned Palin both ranked below 70th place. In other words, they're not even worth his time. Damn, that's cold. Normally, that's what someone who makes decisions based on pure logic would say. Further on, they're already halfway through, but the girl seems ready to fight, and Fernan just shrugs and tells her to do as she pleases. So she unsheathes her sword, saying it's time to earn some extra points. He asks if it wouldn't be easier to just handle this with magic. They go back and forth, arguing about how to deal with them, while the other pair just tries to find a way to escape. But the next second, Luina is already flipping through the air, declaring that she's about to secure those extra points. Oof, it looks like those poor students just got wiped out. Well, one of them did manage to put up a pretty solid barrier that deserves some credit. Actually, never mind, it's over. The two of them are on the ground crying, and just like that, another team has been eliminated. Back in the observation room, the professor remarks that another team has fallen. Everyone is dropping faster than expected. Rosalia, the goth professor, thinks it's fine. At least the students aren't being taken out by monsters. The others, it's much more interesting when the conflict is internal. The professor asks if there are any groups she's paying special attention to. She says that, of course, Ludger Schwaben and Alain Donnet are the strongest team. Carlos is also a man to keep an eye on. And, obviously, the weirdest team in the whole class, Luina Berchef and Fernand Felmberg. He agrees. That pairing was totally unexpected, and honestly, Luina seems to be at a disadvantage. It wasn't about the money. What didn't make sense was that Fernan never cared enough about grades to invest just for academic improvement. The professor says he's sure there's another reason. After all, he knows. For sure that Fernan could raise his rank whenever he wanted. The professor is confused. What do you mean by that? She tells him to look closer. Ever since Fernan entered the academy, he has always been ranked 10th. No matter what happens, even the top students usually fluctuate in their position. So, why, no matter who comes or goes, does Fernan never move from 10th place? Besides, his written exams are practically perfect. The only time he loses points is during the practicals, which keeps him stuck in 10th place. Oh, you cunning little rascal! What is this Ayanokoji-style behavior? The professor finally gets it. The boy is doing it on purpose. Rosalia confirms it, obviously, and he might not know it yet, but the one who destroyed the training grounds recently was Fernan. The professor can't believe it. That whole place was reduced to ashes. There was a hole in the ceiling. What the professor wants to know is, why is Fernan hiding his abilities? She replies that there's really no way to know for sure, right? Based on his motivations, maybe it's about money, and there he is, standing confidently on a rock, pointing north on the map. Meanwhile, down below, it seems Luina is beating everyone senseless. A while later, a bunch of students are already lying on the ground knocked out, and she asks if he at least found anything. He says they'll have to head north. The problem is that the path is crowded. But for her, that's perfect. She's ready to take out the next group. Just then, a huge fireball flies over them like a comet. Someone approaches saying they've finally met a blonde guy and a girl who already looks like she's about to lose. Carlos Denave. Yeah, even his name sounds like he's going to be defeated. Luina says it was a dirty attack, but he replies that this is real combat practice. They'd better know they won't escape now that fate has brought them together. Luina doesn't understand why this guy is so mad. Fernan says it's obvious. It's because he stole her. She tells him to stop with that. She doesn't belong to anyone, so there was no theft. Apparently, this blue-haired guy wanted to team up with her, and now Carlos is completely red, yelling at them to go fight. Fernan realizes that fighting is inevitable at this point. Luina thanks him, saying that their rank is higher, so more points for them. He tells her to go ahead and charge. He knows there's no way to stop her. If anything, he'll provide support, but she says she won't need it. They hadn't even coordinated anything. How were they going to be in sync? Meanwhile, Fernan is already raising blocks of earth with magic, telling her not to worry, as rocks fly everywhere. He tells her to trust him, and the crazy thing is, this guy doesn't even specialize in earth magic. Just wait until he uses fire. The next chapter begins with the goth professor saying there's a good fight going on. It's on the Eastern Mountain, and monsters aren't supposed to appear there, so it's worth taking a look. It turns out the two teams she was watching are now facing off. It was finally time to see what Fernand Felmberg could really do, and there he is throwing rocks while Luina charges. It's a real fight between heavyweights. She thought the blue-haired guy was a swordsman, but apparently he's a mage. It seems like all the guys in this world are mages. Our dear Luina is confused. Her body feels incredibly light. There's only one explanation. Felmberg used support magic. But when did he cast it? It's too subtle. He's already backing her up in the middle of battle. She glances at him and he winks at her. She realizes he's crazy. Just then, she's almost cut by the other girl, but she dodges just in time. Now is not the time to be distracted by that idiot. She has to finish off Alia. She unleashes a powerful blast and Alia blocks it. Now, the two are in close quarters combat with swords, but then Alia's partner, Carlos, launches a lightning bolt. One would think Fernan would intervene, but no. Luina's hit, she's paralyzed, unable to move. Alia steps forward saying, "This is over." Luina mutters that it's nothing, but it's too late. Alia activates her aura and says it's finished. Then a golden flash crosses the field. It's not a lightning bolt, it's a meteor. No. It turns out Fernan used a kind of teleportation. He cast a substitution spell and brought her right to his side. She's stunned. What was that? He simply says, "Magic." It's a new technique he developed with his family. It's quite useful, and this was the perfect time to use it. It allows him to swap anything that has the exact same weight. She asks how he knows her exact weight. He replies that everything is recorded in the Academy's student file. She laughs, saying that stone must have been really heavy. They almost attack again, but the scene cuts right before they do. She immediately says she'll have to delete those student records. It's for later, but for now, it's time to take care of this fight. She tells Fernan to stand back and charges at the opponents. She asks him to at least stop that annoying Carlos while she takes care of Alia. Just then, a magic circle appears near Fernan. He's delighted. Finally, the guy is using what he really knows. Carlos specialized in lightning magic, and one of his signature techniques was creating an orb that shoots multiple bolts, what they called multicast. That spell was one of the reasons he was ranked so high in the department, and now Fernan could finally test something to see if it worked. He struck his staff against the ground and began to chant in a strange language. Carlos was doing the same, muttering in that weird, mystical tone. Suddenly, everyone felt that something was not right. Someone screamed Fernan's name. He had just taken a direct lightning bolt to the head. Smoke everywhere. It was already the second time he'd been electrocuted, but of course, he was totally fine. Carlos couldn't believe it. How was the entire lightning spell blocked? On the ground was an object, clearly something he had used, probably super expensive, the kind of thing only he could afford. Fernan explained that it was something that could store energy. He just made a few adjustments and apparently it worked very well. Once he perfects it a little more, he plans to sell it in stores. Carlos says that artifact is cheating. But Fernan, he replies that there's no such thing as cheating or being a coward on the battlefield. After all, this is a real fight, so he calls for Luina. Carlos turns around, worried about Alia, but Fernan had already given the order to end it all. Luina's bright blue eyes light up as she lands a clean hit. Nearby, the top two students, probably number 1 and number 2, were watching the prince. Luger, the blonde one, comments that there are only 4 people left now. Alan, the student ranked number 1, says that what he's really interested in is how Fernan blocked Carlos's lightning bolt. Luger admits he doesn't know much about Fernan, he's been hidden for a long time, but now that he has joined Berzolt, it will be difficult to keep hiding his powers. Trez was unlucky to be paired with someone so obsessed with grades, he'll definitely have to work hard to keep up with her. He really needs to be careful. This place is full of people trying to take his spot at the top. And as expected, more students started appearing from behind. Too bad they're all background characters who are about to be destroyed. It won't even be worth showing how they lose. At first, it seemed like they were going to fight Luger, but he turns around and says he will lead everyone safely to the final destination on one condition: they have to team up and defeat the duo of Luina and Fernan Berg. The next chapter begins with a monster being sliced up. Fernan says they are getting closer to the destination, but creatures keep appearing. Luina is happy, thinking they'll probably be the first to arrive. He is busy collecting blood from one of the monsters, and she asks if it's really necessary. He explains that troll blood is incredibly useful for crafting a bunch of potions. She says she already knows that, but come on, with all the money he has, that's practically pocket change. But of course, he's greedy. To him, money is money no matter the amount. She complains and he reminds her, thanks to that mentality he managed to buy her. She storms off furiously, saying she's had enough. He taunts her, saying she sounds pretty desperate to stay at the top of the rankings. She admits it. There's a very specific reason why she has to be at the top. Suddenly, he says he feels someone approaching. Actually, not just someone, quite a few people. They are immediately surrounded. Magic starts to fly. Rocks fly through the air. He raises a barrier and cuts down the first attackers. What the hell? It all happened too fast. Someone lunges straight at Luina with a sword, and of course it's Alan Donuts, the same guy who was already defeated by Ainte. Now it's her turn to defeat him. They exchange blows in a clean fight, but the impact throws them both backward. They manage to land well, and as always, she's thrilled. They immediately charge at each other again. She activates her aura and tells him to come at her with everything he's got. He remains silent, but keeps fighting. Another loud clash of swords, but then a strange move cuts through the middle of everything, and suddenly another mage with flames in his hands appears. Wait a second. That's not just any mage. Isn't that the guy ranked 2nd Ledger? But before anything else can happen, a wave of dark energy sweeps across the entire field, heading straight for him. Honestly, I don't even know who threw it. This fight has gotten way too chaotic, the blonde guy smiles. Oh right, our boy Fernan took it seriously. He's throwing fire and rocks everywhere now. A massive explosion erupts right in front of the whole crowd of students. The other guy complains that he was just trying to test Fernan to see how he'd react. There was no need to go all out and vaporize everything. He says that kind of effort isn't like Fernan. But Fernan just replies that this time he wants to make sure they finish in first place. The guy smiles and says that's a shame, because they can't really win. They can't settle this peacefully, obviously, but if they fight now, neither team will be able to finish. So how about this? Let Fernan and Luina take first place, and they'll settle for second. That way, both sides win. It looks like Fernan is about to show what he's really capable of, and he totally does, basically humiliating the guy by telling him that, unfortunately, that'll have to wait until next time. The guy clearly gets the hint. Just then, Fernan casts a huge portal under everyone. A large magic circle appears as the ground opens up. He's tearing up the whole forest at the same time. He casts a barrier around himself and Luina. Turns out they had prepared this trap in advance, but by then, it was too late. Everyone else was sealed inside a stone cocoon. Fernan calls out to Luina, telling her it's time to go. Wait, are they really just going to leave like that? There's no way this is ending so easily, but it does. The headmaster congratulates everyone and announces the results. First place, Louisa Berchef and Fernan Felmberg. The other two complain from second place, completely exhausted. Fernan congratulates Luina on the result. She admits she didn't expect them to actually get first place. She thought it was unfair, since they didn't face the strongest ones, but he tells her that doesn't matter, they still won in the end. The teacher announces the official end and reminds everyone not to wander around. At that moment, Luina asks about Ain Armian. She explains that she saw him the night before last. She had been training and came across something interesting. She describes him in the exact same way Fernan described her when he first saw her sword dance. Suddenly, Fernan covers his face with his hand. At first, it seems like he's just confused, or because, after all, he's been trying to win over Luina, but now she's clearly fascinated by another guy's sword skills. But no, it's not that. It has to do with the prophecy. Another part of it has just been revealed. Apparently, Ain Armian held out his hands and asked Luina to become his knight, but she refused. Now, Fernan can't understand what's happening. Even the prophecy is getting distorted. The text is all jumbled. He can't even read it properly. Something apocalyptic is coming, and it seems Ain Armian is the target. But someone, a female knight, stood in front of him, and now the story is changing. This wasn't what the future was supposed to do. Ain asked what she thought she was doing, and she replied, "Today, I will be your knight." Just as you asked. She said she was born to wield a sword and destroy the enemies of lords, and with that she ran towards the demon Andromalius. Fernan can't understand why all of this is happening, and apparently she ends up in very bad shape. After the battle, this new vision of the future seems complete. Now it feels like we're entering a totally different story. She wakes up in the hospital with Ain smiling by her side, just grateful that she survived. But the blonde boy swore to destroy those bastards who tried to harm her and ruin the future of the Berchef family. And it really looks like he's pissed at a certain kind of rich bastard. It can only be one person, the rich bastard himself, that scumbag. Suddenly, someone calls out to Fernan again. It's the teachers, and Luina asking if he's okay. He's just standing there, completely spaced out. He replies that he's just a little exhausted, but he's fine, as the teacher starts talking about taking him to the infirmary. He's more focused on the fact that he's finally understood why an Armian will see him as an enemy. What he can't comprehend is why the prophecy has changed and why everything now seems to revolve around Luina. The strangest thing is that it feels like what's about to come will happen soon. Meaning, the demon Andromalius is about to appear and, to be honest, doesn't that bastard look a bit like his father with that same tired face? Hello, next chapter. Ain is praising our boy for taking first place, and the kid just gets into the carriage saying he's exhausted. He's been thinking about that guy. Andromalius, the 72nd demon. What a number to remember. The creature takes human form, but has a small snake on its arm. No matter how much our boy searches in the books, that's the only information he manages to find about that scumbag, which actually makes sense. It appeared during the war 1,000 years ago, so how is there supposed to be detailed information about that weirdo? All those things were annihilated by the first emperor and haven't been seen since. Still, he's relatively calm. Ain is gonna take care of that guy anyway, so really, it's not his problem. The real problem is that it seems Luina is going to get hurt in all of this, and now he's wondering, should he tell her what's gonna happen to her? He tried to bring it up, but all she did was ask him if he's going crazy. He asked her, hey, do you believe in demons? That just confused her even more. He pressed her for a straight answer, and she finally said yes, she believes. After all, this entire nation was built to fight demons back in the day. Then he asks what she thinks about the idea that demons still exist, and of course, she once again asks if he hit his head and completely lost it. Now he's sitting there, trying to figure out what could convince this girl when an idea strikes him. In 1 month, during one of the knight's training sessions, Ain is going to defeat Kalbunder, the second strongest, and from that moment on, no one can really compare to him. But the loser in this case doesn't just lose the fight. No, it's worse. It's as if his honor and his standing with his family are also ruined. 2, the redhead realized he completely misjudged Ain. He thought the guy would be pathetic, but he was completely wrong. That burning frustration ends up pushing Kalbunder to the edge, and in the end, he gets possessed by a demon, and it's right then, when the creatures start to appear. If our boy can use that moment to convince her, it could be the perfect opportunity. Next scene. We switch to 8's little ghost friend, who says that those two families getting closer can't be trusted. The only ones who could have been by his side in the past were always the Burchefs. Turns out our boy already knew about the ghost's little chat. What the heck? He already has almost all the information he needs to execute his plan, but a few pieces are still missing. He knows those pieces will show up eventually. But this time they're taking forever, and it seems like he needs to fulfill some kind of condition first. Whatever that means, the scene then switches to Ain in his room, going over everything that happened or how our boy got first place with the Burchef girl. The ghost says it was all thanks to her, who comes from a decent family. There's no way that Fellingberg guy was any help. That scumbag only cares about money. But Ain explains that nowadays, the Fellingbergs have much more influence than the Burchefs. The ghost blames himself, saying it's all because he supported those bastards 1,000 years ago. Suddenly, he gets an idea and tells Ain to ask the Fellingberg boy for money. The blondie is confused, but the ghost insists that this is the perfect opportunity, especially since Fernand really seems to like him. The ghost is convinced that the guy wants to build some kind of relationship with the Armians and the Fellingbergs. They always use money as bait to get what they want, so now Ain wonders, did Fernan only approach him for some other reason? His family is already ruined, so what could he even offer? The ghost tells him to stop putting himself down like that. He says the reason doesn't matter. He's sure a Fellingberg would act like that. Apparently, they still behave the exact same way they did 1,000 years ago, but poor Ain says there's no way our boy would do something like that. He seems like a genuinely kind person. The first time they met, he immediately gave Ain a ridiculously high title just to help him out. There's no way he sees that guy as cold and calculating. He says it would be dishonorable to ask for money, but the ghost starts scolding him, reminding him that even the first emperor, who was incredibly powerful, unlike him, needed help. So he'd better learn to beg and get some money from the Fellingbergs. Cut to the next scene. Ain is devastated. He couldn't meet with Fernan. Aang says Fernan must have too many things to do. The guy has to take care of the Merchants Guild and also keep up with his studies. Aang just asks them to make one thing clear. He's not just anyone, he's Aang. But Fernan replied saying he was very busy and told him to come back later. So Aang turns around. What can he do? He came all this way to ask for money, and now he's leaving empty-handed, feeling completely humiliated. But Fernan is watching him from the window. He finds it strange. He hadn't even thrown out enough bait for Aang to show up so suddenly. Aid comes in and says he's already sent the boy back, and then asks why Fernan is pushing him away, when just a few days ago he was talking about getting closer to him. Fernan says it's because it's weird that he came so suddenly. Everyone who seeks out the Felbergs usually has an obvious motive. He knows why Aang came, and that's precisely why he's even more suspicious. It's not normal for someone like him to come all this way just to ask for money, which is why he sent him away. He has a feeling that Aang came to ask for help, even if he didn't want to, and for now it's best not to offer anything. Unless he really trusts the kid. Hyde thinks he's overthinking things, spending too much mental energy on the descendant of a fallen family. But Fernan just says the boy has talent and is sure he'll be worth it. Hyde agrees, but says it's weird that Fernan sent him away if he really thinks so. Fernan tells him to stop complaining and go to the family's warehouse to get some elixirs. It seems that's what he plans to give, ain't. He says it's risky if they hand over one of those ultra-rare elixirs and it doesn't work, they'll be at a loss. Fernan, however, says that if the most expensive one doesn't work, they'll just make an even more expensive one. In this life, if you haven't succeeded yet, it means you haven't spent enough money. Back in Ain's room, the little ghost is a bit shocked by the audacity. I mean, they didn't even send the guy in person, just a servant. At least they sent a letter of apology. He says he wants to take a look, since the Felbergs are usually quite polite. The guy refers to himself as Zumbe in the letter, which basically means someone with more experience. And that really infuriates the ghost. But what really catches Ain's attention is the gift. He checks it out immediately. It's an elixir infused with the spirit of the sacred bird, and it's perfect for the army and sword style. Right then and there, Aint says that Fernan really is someone special. Even though he didn't give him money, he still offered him something incredibly valuable. As Aint gets excited, he says he always knew Fernan was kind. Now he's more determined than ever to keep trying his best and live up to Fernan's expectations. Next chapter, Fernan asks how everything went, and Hyde says that Fernan's Aint easily defeated Varen Kalbunder. Even though Varen had a slightly more advanced sword technique, Aint's aura was just overwhelming. Fernan asks if that was thanks to the elixir he sent. Hyde says it probably helped a little, but judging by Fernan's smile, Hyde says it seems like Aint would have won with or without it. Fernan simply replies, that's something we'll never know. What really matters is that, just as the prophecy said, Varen was defeated and now he's going to be possessed by a demon. He tells Hyde to keep a close watch on Varen Kalbunder and find out what he's up to. He needs to know when and how this guy is going to make contact with the demon. He also tells him to pay special attention to where he goes, who he interacts with, and what he talks about. Hyde doesn't seem very interested, but Fernan insists he needs to know everything Varen does. The days go by, and soon Fernan starts. He begins to receive reports on everything, from when Varen goes to the bathroom to when he trains, every class he takes, and who he talks to. 2 weeks pass since the start of this whole surveillance operation, and still nothing happens. Fernan is sure something is wrong. According to the prophecy's timeline, the demons should have already started to appear and the destruction should have begun. It seems like Hyde is slacking on his job, or maybe the details of the prophecy about they were wrong about the possession. The prophecy said that after being defeated by Aint, Baron would be filled with rage and face him again during the midterm exams, but the outcome would already be decided. Aint, trained by the spirit of Gardner, would completely overpower him and effectively defeated him, leaving the guy unconscious on the ground. But what Aint didn't realize was that a strange demonic energy began to seep into Baron's body. Suddenly, Fernan wakes up, it's morning, apparently he slept through the night and dreamed about the entire prophecy. This time, it wasn't like before, when the visions came to him directly. It was more like a dream. Still, it seems he finally knows exactly when Baron will be possessed. During the midterm exams, after being defeated by Ain't. And here's the worst part, that exam is today. The damn prophecy caught him by surprise. He didn't expect it to be right now. Hyde comes in and tells him he's finally waking up early and that it's time for breakfast, but then he sees him storing a bunch of items in his portal, including a shield that looks like it's straight out of Zelda, and asks him what's going on. Fernand just says he's going to watch the first year's fight and that he might need backup, so Hyde should go with him. But no way, Hyde refuses. It turns out he was summoned to the Duke's territory, and Fernand accepts it, saying it's fine, he'll take someone else. Although Hyde finds it weird, he knows Fernand doesn't have any friends at this academy. Fernand insists, claiming he's being slandered. He does have friends, okay? Look, friends he bought with money. Luina, now confused, wants to know what he's talking about. He tells her he needs an escort to go pick up an elixir. She's not too thrilled, saying it's exam season, but then she mentions she could use some help, since she's being sponsored. The moment Fernand offers to reduce her debt, she immediately says she's in. When she asks where they're going, he says to the northern mountains. She points out that the first years are in their midterm exams right now, so going there is borderline insane, she warns him. If they interfere with the exam, they could both get expelled for it, but then she gets it. If they're letting him into the zone, he must have bribed someone to let them through. He just smiles, saying the professors are surprisingly flexible. But suddenly, she says she's going back to the dorm. He tells her to hurry up and come back, that they're not going to get caught. What kind of gentleman goes back on his word? He tells her. She replies that it's not, that she just forgot her little sword. He tells her to get a move on, that she'll be skipping and singing all the way back. Obviously, they needed to be on the scene to witness everything that was about to happen. And there they are. Fernand reminds her that he paid the professor to let them in, but they still can't afford to get caught. She immediately scolds him, saying she knew this was shady and he still did it, which makes it worse. He tells her she's such a good girl and that he's going to check where they need to go. He vaguely remembers the location on the map. It's where Aint's fight happens and he would finally face. Varen, who is turning into a demon, with the right person by his side, calls her to join him. She's still focused on how the hell Fernand got a complete map of the entire exam area. Clearly the bastard paid that professor a lot. He tells her to stop complaining and hurry up, but then something feels weird. Luina asks if that wasn't the sound of a monster. Fernand also immediately senses something strange. She says they need to help the first years. The bastard tells her to wait, but she runs off ahead. She yells that someone is unconscious, but it seems they had a defensive spell, so they managed to survive. The problem is, what did this? It's weird. The creatures in this region aren't usually this aggressive. Fernand can't believe it, it's already started, and again that chilling roar echoes through the trees. Luina asks what the hell is happening up ahead, why the whole forest is exploding, and then asks where they even are. When she looks to the side, something is approaching and there comes an orc, mace in hand. But Luina doesn't hesitate. She cleanly cuts off its arm, making the piece fall to the ground. But the creature keeps advancing and she's confused. She just cut off its arm. Why isn't it stopping? Then pieces of rock start flying. Don't worry, the Money King himself is throwing huge rocks at its back. The beast keeps charging anyway. More rocks hit its chest in a barrage. Luina manages to run past, she pushes off a tree, and dodges another attack in mid-air, landing next to Fernand. She's confused, asking what the hell is going on. He explains, it's a creature that's gone berserk. In that state, it doesn't feel any pain. This type of monster is on a completely different level than the usual ones and is obsessed with killing every living thing it sees. She wants to know why that is. And of course, Fernand already has an idea. It's because of the prophecies and everything that's coming. While the professors are busy dealing with those monsters, Baron is going to attack Ain, obviously. Ain should have a hard time against someone so strong, but like in every story, the protagonist awakens a new power and ends up winning easily. Luina tells Fernand to stop laughing and answer her, "What the hell is that monster?" He simply raises his staff and tells her to calm down, there's nothing to worry about. He's going to take care of that bastard first. We see the map begin to break. It's falling apart. The prophecy is changing the future. Who knows? Someone crashes to the ground completely defeated, calling out for Ain. Armian is the poor redhead who has already been beaten. He tells Aang not to turn his back on him and that this isn't over yet, but Aang just tells him to accept it. It's done. He's been defeated again. As obvious as they were, those words leave the boy paralyzed. He remembers the blonde man, maybe his father, or perhaps that friend of his, saying that he clearly expected too much from him. He already failed to live up to the prince's expectations, and now he's about to be humiliated by his father once again. At this rate, he'll lose his place in the family. He has to win this fight somehow. This time, he has to be the one to win. Ain't Armian. Out of nowhere, a blurry shadow lunges at him, Garga yelling that this isn't over yet, but Ain't turns around with a smile as the guy practically explodes with rage. Still, it only takes a few clean hits and he drops to the ground like trash. Ugh, he laughs, saying it's funny how hard this guy tries despite being so weak. It's just an embarrassment attacking from behind like that, with no honor whatsoever. Aang turns and walks away while his spirit companion keeps mocking the guy, calling him a worm who dishonors knights. Back with our dynamic duo, it seems they just finished defeating the monster, and Luina tells Fernan, "Please give up on this elixir thing, this forest is too dangerous." But Fernan says, "Come on, Luina, you just defeated one of those creatures. That proves I can keep going." She asks if he's lost his mind, but he throws the same question back at her. He tells her that elixir is worth too much, and besides, even though those creatures are relentless, they eventually die. That's when she questions him. She knew something like this was going to happen. That's why he dragged her along as an escort. He says no, obviously not. It's not like I have visions of the future, right? She's still not convinced. She says this all feels weird, but he just says there's something he has to do, the elixir is too important, and runs off while she yells that he's a lunatic. A while later, they come across someone collapsed on the ground. Luina looks confused, wondering what this has to do with the elixir, but Fernan sees the red hair and already knows it's that loser who got beaten up. Luina tells him to stay put. She'll go see who it is. As she gets closer, she sees Varen Kalbunder, or Kalbunder Varen, whatever his name is this time. She says it looks like he was beaten in a fight, but he's good. Who did this to him? Fernan says they have to leave now. But she refuses, saying they can't just leave someone lying around like that. As she's talking, the guy starts to get up behind her. Suddenly, she feels something strange in the air and takes a step back, asking, "What is that weird aura?" She's never felt anything like this. He doesn't seem like the same Kalbunder she knew. Fernan tells her, "It's demonic energy." At that moment, that bastard had been possessed. What Fernan finds strange is that the guy should have awakened his demonic power right after being defeated by Aim, but now it seems his goal has changed. Something doesn't add up. The demon is even starting to completely take over Kalbunder's body, and although Luina seems confused, Fernan knows just by looking at the guy's eyes. It's too late, there's nothing to be done. She, on the other hand, still wants to subdue him somehow. Fernan, however, just pats Luina on the shoulder and tells her to turn around for 10 minutes. When she turns back asking what, he's already disappeared. And just at that moment, Kalbunder charges at her, sword in hand, ready to strike. She yells at him to calm down, that it's her, it's Bershef, but no, it's an all-out, no-holds-barred showdown with a dark power unleashed. Her small sword against his huge blade, and she immediately realizes he's strong. At this rate, there's no way she can win, so boom, she activates her aura. He falls on his back like an idiot, but in the same instant, he's already recovering and lunges at her again. She yells at him to wake up, to come to his senses, but he takes up his sword again, swings at her, and she's forced to back away once more. The guy is completely drenched in that cursed aura. While she glows with her little luminous sword, he charges like a rabid dog. Clash, clash, sword against sword again, and the whole forest trembles with the explosion. She manages to land on her feet, but quickly realizes something is wrong. Her energy is being drained by that demonic power. How the hell is she supposed to beat someone like that? At this rate, she'll run out of stamina before he does. That's when Fernan suddenly appears, calling her name. Kalbunder turns around, but Luina just steps on his head and runs towards Fernan. She demands to know where he went or how he just vanished into thin air. He replies that dealing with demons isn't easy, they need a better plan. She's furious, saying it was shameful to just leave her behind like that. He explains that he didn't run away. He was preparing a trap to finish off the demon. They just needed to wait one more second, and boom! A stone formation erupts from the ground, launching Kalbunder upwards. In a circle from high above, a rain of flaming arrows falls on him, smashing him into the earth. Was that a Street Fighter combo? And even Luina yells at him not to overdo it. He almost killed the guy. Fernand tells her to relax. With that demonic energy, he wasn't going to die so easily. In fact, she should take a closer look. Or all that just made him even angrier. Luina tries to say something she noticed during the fight, but he completely ignores her. Instead, he says he'll have to use this. He takes out a giant crystal. Yep, definitely more of that money-fueled power. More flames start to gather around the redhead. He looks seriously corrupted now. The flames engulf him and he finally collapses, charred and defeated. Fernand lets out a sigh of relief, saying the operation was a success. Luina, however, points out that the item he used was ridiculously expensive, so wasn't it a huge loss? He agrees, but says that items like that are meant to be used. She thinks it was overkill, but he's convinced you can't defeat a possessed person that easily. Besides, he knows this damn Baron Kalbunder was supposed to be one of the pillars of the world's destruction, and that's when it hits him. In the story, Einarmian was supposed to have a tough fight against this guy and awaken his true power through it. Yeah, and then the realization hits. Sure, Ain will be stronger than Luina in the future, but right now, when he's just starting at the academy, Luina is still much stronger than him, which means that Fernand didn't need to use that expensive item at all. She probably could have handled it on her own, just like Ain would eventually. She gives him a smack, telling him to wake up, or all he can think about is how much money he wasted on this idiocy. She tells him he's lost his focus and needs to get centered again, but just at that moment, Kalbunder starts getting up again. He suddenly lunges for another attack, but he's all twisted and so wobbly, like a deranged monkey. And Fernand just punches him in the face, screaming about how much he had to spend to defeat this loser. Kalbunder falls unconscious, defeated in the most disastrous way possible. Next chapter. Kalbunder wakes up, asking if that was really him. He can't believe it. Something like that just couldn't have been real. Fernand just says dryly, that recording sphere clearly shows it was you. Possessed by a demon, you can't fake something like that. Kalbunder keeps insisting that he doesn't remember fighting Einarmian at all, or anything from that fight. Fernand just replies that it's because by the time he fought Ain, he was already starting to be possessed. Kalbunder defends himself, saying he never even spoke to a demon, never met one, so how could he have been possessed? Fernand says he's not in the mood for explanations and just tells him to watch the recording. You took the hit directly to the head with the attack. Dozens of magic arrows pierced your body and a pillar of fire erupted under your feet. The fact that you're still standing right now proves you were protected by demonic energy. Not to mention, he adds, it pains me to admit it, but I had to use a ton of super expensive items just to handle you. Kalbunder replies, if you're just here to complain about the price of the items you had to use, just say so. I'll pay for them. But Fernand goes into full drama mode, saying the emotional trauma from that fight was immense. He swears that during the battle, he saw his life flash before his eyes over and over again. Kalbunder cuts him off, telling him to get to the point, and Fernand pulls out a contract. Yep, that kind of contract, the one that looks like something a certain someone else would try. He tells Kalbunder that all of this can be forgotten if he signs the contract. It's like one of those deals where you end up working yourself to death. Kalbunder says, what the hell is this? Is this slavery or what? The terms are excessive, to say the least. Fernand tells him he should appreciate his superior's kindness. He's trying to handle this without making a scene, but if Kalbunder refuses, well, Fernand will, unfortunately, have to send the video to the Inquisitors. That group serves directly under the Emperor, and their goal has always been the total eradication of demons. Back when demons were the world's greatest threat, the Inquisitors had absolute power. Nowadays, with demons nearly extinct, they're more of a ceremonial organization. Still, they retain considerable authority, and Fernand knows exactly what kind of people they are. They may have lost power, but they still hold countless rare items and are just waiting for any excuse to get back in action. So, the moment a demon appears, they'll eagerly jump at the chance to kill. Kalbender says he understands, but he seriously had nothing to do with those demons. Fernan says he knows, but wouldn't it be a shame if he got expelled from the academy because of that recording? Just imagine the rumors about the house of Marquis Kalbender once people start saying their son made a pact with a demon. Obviously, that seals the deal. The contract is signed. Fernan declares that from now on, Kalbender is under his care. Sometime later, someone asks if it's really okay to handle things like this. It's Luina. She thinks they should inform the professors. This is getting way too risky, but Fernan says it's not the right time yet. He's convinced by Kalbender's reaction that he never intended to be manipulated, transformed, or possessed by a demon. What they need to do now is focus on the fact that someone inside the academy has the power to do that, and if this incident becomes public, whoever is behind it will just go into hiding, making it even harder to catch the real culprit. Luina immediately realizes what he's planning. She's going to investigate this on her own. What she doesn't understand is why the targets would be students. Fernan says that maybe it's because the academy is full of the people who will shape the future. Destroying this place would be like destroying the future of the world itself, and she gets it. If that's the case, then if he ever needs help exterminating demons, he just has to call her. Fernan lights up. He can finally ask for her help without having to offer debt forgiveness. He'll soon realize that was the dumbest promise he could have ever made. With all that chaos, the midterm exams were officially canceled, but the students still had to be evaluated somehow. So all the practical tests were replaced by written exams, and at this academy, the practical exams are usually the most valued. But of course, there are always these bookworms who spend all day buried in books. Now, the supposed sword masters had to actually hit the books. The blonde guy was deep in his books when Alma spoke up, saying she's trying to understand what happened. It's weird. When that guy attacked him, she's sure he was emitting demonic energy or something similar, but whoever or whatever that demon was, it never fully appeared in the end. Ain't says that maybe she's overreacting, that perhaps it wasn't a demon at all, but Alma insists it's impossible. She recognizes that energy and tells him to start preparing because that demon will definitely show up again. And what's worse, she says he can be sure that he'll be one of the targets. Ain't asks why me. Alma replies as if it's obvious. He's the one who carries the spirit of the person who eradicated all the demons in the past. The first step in their attempt to conquer the world would be to eliminate the Armenian bloodline. That's why, from now on, he'd better not let his guard down for even a second. Meanwhile, in the Rivero Hall, Fernan is there clutching his head in pain, and honestly, nobody knows why. Ain't asks him what's wrong. Here we go. More messages from the future. Apparently, the next test will involve survival skills. The students will be thrown into a southern forest for a whole week. Fernan seems to know exactly which forest they're talking about, and it seems perfect to him because it contains a certain spirit herb. Wait, plot twist. It turns out the supposed spirit herb is actually a trap. It removes all your protections. Cut to Ain't entering a cave. Something, perhaps a voice, asks if this is the place and warns him that if he doesn't truly intend to find her, he will never succeed. All right, follow me. He keeps moving forward and finally finds her. Bam! He comes face to face with a dragon. When the spirit beast collapses, it reveals a mithril mine. Alma tells Ain't not to leave anything behind, but let's be honest, Fernan will probably take all the mithril for himself. It's a metal blessed by mana, and it's the only material that allows souls to live inside it. That's why the Emperor's soul is inside Aint's sword. Fernan saw all of this, and now his head hurts terribly. He's trying to process the idea of a metal that can store souls, and as soon as he understands it, he wants it really badly. Apparently, Luina was also summoned, and she complains, last time it was a potion, now it's an herb. He tries to downplay it, saying he was just kidding that time, but this time he's serious and swears it's something valuable, telling her not to worry about her classes. He already got a bunch of excuses for the professors, so she can go with him, and he even offers to reduce her family's debt. Still, she refuses. The one thing she can't do is skip class, much less a whole week for something as silly as a spirit herb. He sighs and says, All right, if she doesn't want to go, I'll invite someone else. Just then, the door opens. A voice says it's been a while since he last saw Brother Fernan and wishes him a day full of manna. Uh-oh. Who is this weird guy? Luina asks who he is. He introduces himself as Jace Vines, walking in all bright and pure, and also wishes a manna blessing upon her. He's clearly there to talk to Fernan, wanting to know how his life at the academy has been. Luina immediately asks if they're close. Fernan smiles, saying she sounds surprised, and Jace adds that it makes sense given the kind of relationship they have. Luina says it just doesn't add up. After all, this Jace guy is the saint of the Dragon Church. How can a holy man from a religious order and the greediest guy in school be friends like that? Jace tells her she might not understand, since she's not a mage. The Dragon God Church originally worshipped the dragons who granted magic to humanity, but over time, their worship changed, and now they revere mana itself. That's why the church grew larger and larger, and nowadays, it's basically an organization run by mages. Therefore, anyone who wants to become an archmage must be recognized by their church. Luina tells him to save the speech, she already knows that. What she doesn't get is why he and Fernan are so close. And now it all starts to make sense. Jace explains that an organization reliant on mages definitely needs a lot of money, and Fernan Felmberg happens to be the one who supports them the most. Countless church artifacts were created thanks to that guy's investments. That's why the church and Fernan are deeply connected. As the two of them chat cheerfully, Luina starts to realize once again this scumbag solved everything with money. And now she wonders how the hell Jace is even considered a saint. Jace kindly asks her to lower her tone a bit. It's not like they could refuse Felmberg's help, right? Seeing that she's only getting angrier, he says he was just kidding, but she's already leaving, saying that she now perfectly understands the relationship between them. He asks her to wait. Yes, they just met, but she says she's not getting involved in any of this. Jace waves goodbye to her, saying they'll talk again very soon. He blesses her with mana and closes the door. All the weirdos in the room turn their attention to Fernan, wanting to know why they were summoned. Our boy gets straight to the point. He needs help collecting. They're gonna go cut some herbs. Jace says that spirit herbs are interesting. Sure, but Fernan shouldn't get his hopes up. He's going to keep everything for himself. What Jace really wants to know is why Fernan, he's doing all this on the day of the training. With the skills he has, Fernan could go right now and gather it all by himself. Fernan replies that if it were that simple, he would have done it already. Unfortunately, he doesn't know the exact location. In theory, the prophecy gives enough clues. But we're talking about a huge lake in a gigantic forest, and not only that, there are 7 lakes in the southern forest. Fernan has been infusing mana into the lake beds, trying to detect the magical reaction linked to the herbs. But so far, he's had no luck. This is the kind of hidden cave that you can't detect from the outside. You literally have to stumble upon it. Jace mentions that the next survival test will take place right in that area, and navigating a place like that without being detected isn't easy. Fernan says not to worry. This year, he registered as an assistant for the exam. Jace is left stunned. How is he, a second-year student, going to be support staff for the first years? Sure, he's older, but he's not that qualified. Or, how did he convince the academy to let him in? Don't tell me it was that goth instructor who always foils every plan. Wait. He didn't even say it, did he? Of course he bribed her. You damn bastard! Jace says he already knows how the merchant operates. And, well, if Fernan is getting this involved, just pay him enough and he'll join in against your brother, too. And boom, it's the day of the test. Alma tells Ain they need to go over the plan one more time. They are there to find the spirit herb hidden in one of the caves. Yes, Alma knows everything. She tells Ain to make it look like a coincidence, to just walk around and she'll guide him from there. But Ain has already noticed that Fernan is also hanging around. Alma warns him to be careful, that bastard probably wants to steal every last coin from him. But Ain just stands there like a curious puppy. Or, why is everyone so interested in Fernan? Oh, right, because he's loaded with money. Damn it, and look at him, he's already calling out to Fernan all excited. Disappointed, just then the professor calls everyone to get ready. Ain is a bit disappointed he didn't get a chance to talk to him. Then, the camera pans down to the ground, where we see a scarecrow dressed in Fernan's clothes. Our boy bites his finger and collapses onto the scarecrow, and boom! A Fernan 2.0 immediately stands up. Apparently, this was all Jace's doing. He calmly tells Fernan not to worry. He's used this power many times before. In fact, he even tricked the Pope with it once. Fernan finds that very hard to believe. The Pope is one of the most powerful mages in existence. Jace admits that, well, it only worked for a few hours. Nothing long-term, but hey, while the Pope was fooled, it worked like a charm. Fernan shrugs and says that's good enough if the technique was strong enough to fool the legendary mage. It will serve his plan well. No wonder that damn redhead is one of the strongest in the Dragon Church. But then, a demonic voice interrupts, asking what the hell is up with this church's magic, since magic originally came from demons. And it was when this creature dared to utter such blasphemy that the war between the church and the monsters began. What Fernan wonders now is if Jace will end up becoming one of Ain's allies in the future. Jace tells him to come back in 5 hours at the most. That's when the spell will wear off. Ah, Fernan thanks him and leaves, and bam, we're back near Ain. Our boy knows that the only lake in this region is Farden Lake. And now it's someone else's turn. Yep. Guess who steps up in front of him again? Calbunder, seriously? This guy again, he's stunned. The redhead who only shows up to get beaten has returned. He even asks him, hey, don't tell me you came back just to get another beating. You don't stand a chance, right? Calbunder knows it's true, but clearly someone forced him to come here. When he asks why, Fernan simply replies that he clearly doesn't get it. He doesn't understand the situation he's in, all messed up. Calbunder says he still refuses to accept defeat. You're here for a like on this video that helps Armacito keep bringing you these incredible stories. What did you think of our greedy guy? I laughed a lot making this one. I hope you guys like it, and until next time, guys, take care.